Grealish enjoyed a drink last Sunday, and a Sunday before that, and probably the Sunday before that. Pictures were quickly posted around social media as he sank pints as well as buying them for other people at North Biddick Social Club in Washington in the northeast of England, before he could be seen stumbling out of a club later on in the evening. Now, I like a Jaeger bomb as much as the next guy, unless the next guy is Jack Grealish. But in yet another drunken season affected by injuries and once again lacking in goal contributions, does a question really need to be asked about Jack Grealish right now? This thing's fucked. Just like Jack Grealish on a Saturday night. Am I right? Come on. Nah, to be fair, I don't want this joke, you know, to be overused, to dry up. Unlike the bottom of Jack Grealish's pint glass on a Saturday evening. There's a few things that Jack Grealish has been known for during the course of his career, and we'll start with number one. And that's undoubted footballing ability. Even from back in the days when he was allowed to drink a Guinness without causing a diplomatic incident. Flair, dribbling, playmaking, socks that have a phobia of his knees. He's always been a stylish footballer that's been entertaining to watch. No matter whether the goal contributions were flowing, you enjoyed watching Jack Grealish. It looked like he played with a level of freedom, even back in the days when he was on loan at Notts County, playing in League One. Or when he was a bright spark in an Aston Villa side that were determined to be one of the worst clubs in Premier League history. His start to life in the Championship was okay. 5 goals and 5 assists in his first season. Major injuries hurt his next 2 full campaigns a little bit, but you still got the idea that he was easily too good for the Championship. It's just that it was a very strong Championship in terms of promotion at the time. So Aston Villa weren't guaranteed to come straight back up to the Prem. It was a massive part of their promotion, as well as one Birmingham fan's entire stay at a prison somewhere in the West Midlands. Now, Jack Grealish was on a high performance business in the Championship. And I know you guys want to be on a high performance when you're playing video games out on the go, but you don't want to have to carry a PC and a wheelbarrow through Heathrow Airport Terminal 5. So how about instead you try out the Lenovo Legion Go S? Gaming on the go just got even better. It's tantalizing. This is a handheld device that lets you play games on the go to a ridiculous degree, making sure graphics are crisp and gameplay is smooth. It's powered by an AMD Ryzen Z2 Go processor, and that means speed and performance is going to be unrivaled, whether you're grinding through Weekend League or getting violated on pro clubs. Now, 8 inches has always felt like enough. Pause. But in this case, it's even better through Lenovo's Pure Sight display. There's a 120Hz refresh rate, which means no stuttering, no screen tearing. It features Legion True Strike controllers that are elite, full effect joysticks, adjustable triggers, and a D-pad that's easy to use. And with Legion Space, your entire games library is right there. Steam, Xbox Game Pass, Epic, they're all there for you to play easily. This isn't just another handheld. The Lenovo Legion Go S is built different, and you can go grab yourself one down in the description and find out how you can take your gaming performance to the next level. And when Aston Villa ended up back in the Premier League, he was their captain, got 14 goal contributions that generally speaking kept them in the Prem, as well as someone forgetting to switch on goal line technology one time. He got 5 goal contributions in a 7-2 smacking of Liverpool in the 2021 season, and this form had him as one of the biggest stars really in terms of an English player outside of the top 6 teams. In fact, some people have labelled him whilst he was playing for Villa as one of the all-time greats for a player who wasn't playing at a top 4 side. The form, the ability, and just the eye test for Jack Grealish was unbelievable. He'd broken into the England national team, but it was time for a big move. Everyone wanted him, but one team with a lot of money stood above the rest.
Oh, that's a very bad idea.
£100 million, the most expensive English player of all time. A silky smooth number 10 would now be deployed out on the left-hand side by Pep Guardiola.
Nice.
But the first season was not that good. 3 goals and 3 assists in 26 appearances in the league in a side that won the league over Liverpool for £100 million was really not that great. Things improved personally in the 22-23 season in terms of goal contributions. 5 goals, 11 assists in total in all competitions was better, but still not great. But it was a massive season for his trophy cabinet. A Premier League title, FA Cup victory, and Champions League success saw Manchester City claim the treble, seeing Jack Grealish pretty much complete domestic football and continental football all in one season. And it was weird because I'm sure, look, listen, Jack Grealish does not care whether he got the goal in the final or not or whatever. He's a treble winner at the end of the day. And he was involved. He was pretty good in the FA Cup. He improved in terms of his goal contributions in the Prem. But in the Champions League, for example, yeah, he played 90 minutes a lot, but he got 1 assist the entire season in the Champions League in a campaign where they won it. He looked like he'd been stifled by Pep Guardiola's very controlling style of play. Once a man who would beat 2 defenders, pull up his socks halfway through, then win a foul or play a great ball in between the lines for a ridiculous assist, was now someone that would stand one-on-one against a wing-back and then just pass the ball backwards. To be fair, his treble content was class, I'm not even gonna lie. This man was drunk every day for about 17 days straight. Part-time footballer, full-time alcoholic. He turned turned up in his full kit like the day after, drinking what I can only imagine was a concoction that had a 108% alcohol level in it. This man would have failed a breathalyzer test before the police officer had even got it out of his back pocket. He came in high vis, ready to work on a construction site, hoping to rebuild Rodri's knee maybe, or build Bernardo Silva a chairlift for like one step. But the laughing and joking kind of stopped really moving into the last couple of seasons, because they have been extraordinarily bad, I think, in comparison to what Jack Grealish would hope for. Not necessarily the end of 2023, but this man didn't score a goal in the calendar year of 2024. Not even by accident in like the Carabao Cup third round. I remember seeing this statistic on Twitter and being in awe at the fact that it wasn't really being talked about, or seemingly, by media outlets. Yeah, he was kind of getting grilled in terms of the fact that he wasn't like a world beater at Man City, but not scoring one goal in a calendar year as a winger in a Manchester City side that usually is very good is crazy. To be fair, even at the start of the season just gone, they were pretty good. First like 12 games of the season, I'm pretty sure they were top of the league. So there really isn't any excuse whatsoever, to be honest with you, for the fact that Jack was unable to score one goal in a calendar year. I'm not gonna lie, it was getting to a point where it was time for him to learn Chinese.
And then what do I say?
春节看大戏。
春节看大戏.
There was more chance of him finding Coventry on a map of the UK than finding the back of the net. And I'll tell you what, that is saying something. Like, Speed has better stats than him this season. He's pretty much the budget version of the Jota that plays for Nottingham Forest. It's completely switched the other way around. Everyone was calling him the Portuguese Grealish. No, this man is now the Birmingham Jota. And with performances and output kind of like at an all-time low, and again, output doesn't tell the entire story because there have been some good performances from Jack, and he's also been struggling with injuries as well. Like, the guy has not really been able to get a rhythm going. He came back recently and looked pretty decent, then immediately went off injured again, and the poor kid looked devastated. But you do still have to be doing more for £100 million. It doesn't look too great when a £100 million player is out partying instead of scoring goals. Then again, Ilkay Gundogan's looked like he's been drunk whilst he's actually been playing the football, and no one's getting at him. People are getting at Marcus Rashford though, and it's an interesting comparison really with the male sport, you know, tweeting a video of Jack Grealish stumbling out of a club. I wonder what the storyline would have been if it was Marcus Rashford stumbling out of a club instead, because Jack definitely doesn't get as many negative headlines as Marcus does, even though he's definitely more of a party animal.
Is it a colour thing? Is it a colour thing?
And that, as I mentioned, kind of leads to the second thing that Jack Grealish has been known throughout his entire career for, and that is being wild, being a party animal. Not to the detriment of his footballing career. I don't think anyone's actually ever, it's quite impressive actually, the amount of drinking that Jack Grealish actually manages to do whilst not really coming across like a player that doesn't care about football. He's always looked very dedicated, always looked like he was going to put 110% into every football match that he's involved in, and maybe that's why he escapes some of the criticism that some players with maybe a lower work ethic when it comes to their actual style of play kind of receive. But let's be honest, this man genuinely would have gone into ICU if England had won any sort of major competition.
We're Man City and we're on the...
This man was a fan as much as the rest of us in terms of alcohol consumption, and as I mentioned after the treble, the clips were incredible. The amount of stuff I was getting for FTW was crazy. He's been pictured in bed with naked women, he's been videoed stumbling out of nightclubs, he's been seen downing Jaeger bombs. I mean, this guy is every adult below the age of 22 that steps into a Prism nightclub. The negatives of this story is that he stumbled out of a nightclub drunk on a weekend, and he does that quite a lot. It's not like an isolated incident. We've seen Jack Grealish like passed out on a floor on holiday before, or like just drinking a crazy amount in comparison to his own body weight. And as I mentioned, ultimately him being in a bad patch in terms of his on-the-field play, in terms of his actual footballing career, doesn't help. I know it's peak because we want footballers to have lives outside of football, but when they're struggling, it's seen as if they're almost supposed to be robots to make sure that they get back to where they should be. But on the flip side of this story, and something that I haven't mentioned so far in this video, is that whilst he was at these little pubs and these little places in the northeast, he was like spending thousands of pounds on other people while sat at the bar to ensure that they had a good time as well. Complete random, so he's never met before, have no association even necessarily to Manchester in some instances, but he was buying them all drinks. I think he spent like $3,000 on people in this one pub, and ultimately that is pocket change to him. That's absolutely nothing to Jack Grealish, but it still kind of gives you hope and shows that he's like a decent, like real person that's like willing to give up his own money to like make sure that other people have a nice time around him. It makes you realize that he's like a relatable lad that's just enjoying a drink in his time off after beating Plymouth in the FA Cup, which isn't quite as relatable. At the end of the day, like, does he know what an Uzbekistani is? Probably not. Should he be stumbling out of nightclubs when he's performing badly, you know, like personally speaking? Probably not. But at the end of the day, I think we are so quick, generally speaking, as football fans, to criticize any player that has any level of personality whatsoever. Look, I joke about everybody in FTW, right? But I genuinely love footballers that aren't media trained. I love footballers that have a bit of a laugh, like Ola Aina, Cole Palmer. I don't want every player to be like Declan Rice, who is possibly the most, and this is not a dig at Declan Rice, this is just every player has a different style when it comes to how they're perceived online, how they're perceived in the media, how they want to be perceived by fans. And Declan Rice's is that he's really squeaky clean, totally professional, almost robotic in the sense that he's never really gonna like say anything that will get memed or get posted about on Twitter. You don't see him really in any controversies whatsoever, and it's like a PR machine, right? I don't want that for every single player. I want players to have a little bit of personality. You would have one of the best nights of your life if you went into any nightclub with Jack Grealish, and I think that's sensational. Should he be performing better as a £100 million player? Absolutely. And should he be receiving probably a bit more criticism given how poor he's been in his time at Manchester City, you know, on an individual basis, given his price tag? Absolutely. But I don't want players with personalities getting torn down. That's always frustrating to me. And it kind of begs the question where Jack Grealish goes from here, you know, just from a footballing perspective. Again, I don't really want him to change how he is off the pitch, but on the pitch, something has definitely got to change. People have always said that Pep Guardiola ruined Jack Grealish, and I don't think there's that many examples of players that have been ruined by Pep Guardiola. At the end of the day, whether you like his style of tactics or not, based on certain positions, most of the time Pep Guardiola actually brings the most out of players, especially central midfielders, especially defenders, and usually in terms of goal scorers as well. There is an argument to say that he's made wingers a lot less fun, and I agree with that. But even then, most of the time, they have flourished still under him and under his guidance. I think there's two reasons as to why Jack Grealish hasn't flourished at Manchester City from like a footballing only standpoint, because I can't answer for anything else. The first thing, I think, is that he was always going to struggle at any big club. That might sound controversial, given the footballing ability that he has. He's undoubtedly a good footballer when in the right system. But at Aston Villa, he was just kind of allowed to do whatever the fuck he wanted to. And I think more than most other players in the league, Jack Grealish probably thrives in that sort of environment, when he's confident enough to know that he is the main man at a club and know that there's not a crazy amount of like structural, systemic weight being placed on his shoulders. Like if he's out of position as a number 10, the whole system doesn't break down. He can kind of maneuver into spaces that he wants to on the fly, improvise a little bit more, and kind of play his own game, not as a passenger, because he's got a decent work rate, but not feel like he's got to be plugged into one specific position. And I don't really think there are many clubs in the top 6 that can afford that type of player. I mean, the usual top 6 is all over the fucking place now. Manchester United are fucking 14th in the league. Spurs are like 16th in the league. Even the traditional top 6. I don't think he really works at Chelsea either. Honestly, I couldn't even imagine him really playing for Liverpool. Definitely not under Arteta at Arsenal. But then I think even more so, I think kind of in a similar vein to Arteta at Arsenal, Pep Guardiola even more so. That's even more of an intense scenario. Pep Guardiola wants his players doing a certain thing, and that is it. And sometimes it restricts their creativity, or sometimes it enhances it. And in Jack Grealish's case, I think it really does restrict it. He can't move out of position. He can't really do what he wants to do or play in a style that he usually plays, because it just doesn't fit with what Pep Guardiola usually likes. So it's like a double effect of moving to a big team where you do have to have some more responsibility, and then working with Pep Guardiola where you have to have even more responsibility on top of that. And ultimately, I think it's just taken some of the freedom out of his game. He's still effective to some degree. He still plays relatively well half the time. It's not like he's a complete flop. We're not talking Anthony numbers here. We're not even talking Anthony performances. There are times where Jack Grealish plays really well in a game, just doesn't get an assist or goal to show for it. But I think if he was to leave Manchester City, I think we would see maybe at least a little bit of the old Jack Grealish come back. And I don't mean like drinking on the pitch, hopefully, unless that gets him going a little bit more, in which case, what do you guys make of Jack Grealish's time at Manchester City? What do you make of him at the moment? And where do you guys think he should go next? Because if I'm honest, I think if he stays at Manchester City for the majority of his prime in his career, we're not going to see the old Jack Grealish back, and that does make me sad. So where would you like to see him go next? Maybe a Spurs, maybe a Liverpool, or maybe abroad, maybe somewhere outside of England? Drop it down below. If you have enjoyed this video though, feel free to slap a like on it, and of course subscribe if you are new to the channel. You can also follow me on social media. It is @theofficialfng on Twitter and on Insta. But it's been a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a wonderful day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.